Welcome back to my channel. I am Emily with Styled Mi Casa. Today I want to talk about guest rooms. A lot of people will kind of leave their guest room as an afterthought, mainly because it's hard to decorate an entire house, and sometimes you just get exhausted by the time you get to a guest room, which is not a very highly used space. Sometimes it's a budget restriction. Maybe you don't want to spend a fortune on a room you only use once or twice a year. So I have tips for you both from budget and functionality perspective. Here in our guest room, I had those same challenges. It is a room that we use a few times a year, but of course the priority for my budget was more in my living room, in my dining room, in my primary bedroom. And then we had a bunch of kids' rooms to decorate, an office. I mean, there were so many things to get done that time and budget were tight. So one way that I saved money here in our guest room is I went with a cabinet here instead of nightstands. So when putting together a guest room space, if you don't want to start from scratch, use something you already have on hand to create your palette. So I already had this bed frame. I knew that gray had kind of gone out of style. I didn't love the tufting on the back. However, I didn't want to buy a new bed. So what I did is I brought in a lot of creams and browns, and there are some grays in here as well so that it ties together, but it brought the room into 2024 where we have now transitioned into tans and browns and less grays. The other way I did that was these warm wood tones. And when you're putting together a guest space, if you don't have the budget to start from scratch, you can also, for your nightstands, you can do cabinets. These are more affordable if you are purchasing new nightstands. Cabinets, they are a little more narrow than a nightstand and they're taller. However, this cabinet was under $200, so much more affordable than you could ever purchase a nightstand for. And you don't really need drawers when it's a guest room space. This has cabinet doors, so the guests still can store their things here inside of the cabinet. I generally don't have guests that are really using the cabinet space like that. We do have a closet where they can store their things. The other thing is down here, I have a little stool. And if you can place a stool or even a luggage rack you can get off of Amazon, it's a nice spot for them to either sit and put on their shoes or to actually set their carry-on or their luggage on. And again, like I said, this room is not very large, so I've kind of tucked it here on the side of the wall just underneath my art. If you have the space in your guest room to do a little table like this, I either like to set up a coffee machine on this vintage table. If I know my guest loves coffee, I'll put a Keurig or an espresso machine there. But otherwise, just a little basket with some snacks and bottles of water is a great gift for your guest as well. For styling the nightstand, I like to give something for them to set their cup on, a little tray for jewelry, of course a lamp. People like that extra lighting. I make sure it's plugged in and has a light bulb. I like to include a candle. Make sure you give them matches or an electric lighter. The other option is you could give them a diffuser. Some people like to sleep with diffusers at their house and have essential oils. You could have one available for your guests. And I always like to add these power strips so they don't have to reach behind the nightstands and try to find outlets, but they have plenty of space to charge all of their devices. This has USB and USB-C already ready to just make it really easy for them to charge everything. For this nightstand, the styling is really simple. Again, I have added something they can set their cup on so that it won't make water spots here. I'll add another one of those power cords that they can plug in their devices. This guest room does have an ensuite bathroom, so I always make sure that there's soap, there's lotion, there's a room spray. In case they have any unwanted smells in the room, they can spray them. And then I also make sure that they have a drink and a carafe to be able to use water at night. For bedding, I always like to include plenty of pillows. I'm somebody that sleeps with 2 pillows. So here I have 2 pillows for each guest and some decorative pillows. I have 3 different blanket options. So if they're light sleepers or hot sleepers, they have a lot of choices when it comes to the bedding here. And then I'm always going to give a tutorial. Make sure they know how to use the TV, We have ours mounted on the wall just because there's not a lot of space in this room. We'll make sure that it's pre-logged in to Netflix and to all of the streaming services so that they can watch their shows directly from here. And we also show them how to use the curtains. So I always make sure to point out that they can just push that button to shut the blinds. If you don't have blinds and they use the curtains, it's just polite to explain that to them so that they can easily make their room dark at night when they want to. I hope this helps you try to put together an affordable yet welcoming guest room. If you start with things that you already have, it'll definitely help you keep your space on a budget. Rugs like this one can be found for sometimes under $100 or at least under 200, but they make it feel very intentional, like the room was purposely decorated versus using all of my leftovers. Although all of this was leftover art, and those were as well, but I did bring some things into the room intentionally, like all of this bedding, so that the guests could feel very welcome and cozy. Thank you so much for touring my guest room today. I hope this gave you some good ideas to make a budget-friendly space, but also make sure that your guests are comfortable and have all of their needs right at their fingertips.